Hey, dookieshed here, and welcome to my first ever game review. Now, reviewing games is something I've been wanting to do for a while now, but I didn't expect that this would be the first game that I would review. You know, maybe I'll start doing some 3DS games as they come out, but I was so blown away by this game that I just had to tell you guys about it. The last video I did was the top 5 games that deserve remakes, and occupying the number 2 slot was Metroid II, The Return of Samus. And a lot of you guys were like, hey, dookieshed, there is a remake of Metroid II. It's called AM2R, which stands for Another Metroid II Remake, but this is not just another Metroid 2 remake. Ladies and gentlemen, this shit's good. Like, no, but seriously, I'm like completely blown away by this game. So anyway, I decided to review it. So here we go. AM2R is a remake of The Return of Samus, which debuted on the Game Boy in 1991 as a sequel to the NES Metroid. Return of Samus was, in my opinion, an improvement on the original in just about every way, aside from the lack of color. However, when compared to the complete masterpiece that was Super Metroid, both of these games fall short. It seemed that the series had taken a turn for the fucking awesome, with Metroid Prime, Fusion, and Zero Mission all being really amazingly good as well. Poor Metroid 2 didn't have the OG status of being first in the series, and it was completely outdone by Super Metroid, so it seemed as if it would be lost in the pages of Nintendo history. Lost, but not forgotten. A guy named Dr. M64 began a noble quest to remake this game, and thus AM2R was born. Now let's talk about the damn game! The beginning. AM2R starts you off exactly how Metroid 2 does, standing outside your ship on the surface of planet SR388 with a mountain to your left and a cave to your right. So you start going right and you end up in the same cave full of enemies as Metroid 2. The first cool touch I noticed was that you could still see the outdoor environment while still inside this cave. In the original game, the first cave immediately made you feel isolated. Like the second you could no longer see the planet's surface, you felt like you were already miles underground. But this remake manages to preserve the feeling that you're just scratching the surface. It's not until you actually drop down into a cavern a few screens away that you truly realize you're in for some major spelunking. This whole first section of the game does a good job getting you reacquainted with Metroid 2. Those who are familiar with it will notice the same rocky formations, the same pool of lava, and the same first Metroid encounter. The Metroid pops out of its shell a little less dramatically than in the original and starts trying to rip you apart. And it's here that you notice the first major difference in gameplay from the original. The Metroids are not fucking around. What used to just be pop, 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 you're dead after a few missiles becomes a test of agility and accuracy. The Metroids Samus has to battle here on SR388 are unlike anything she's ever encountered, so just like her, you're forced to adapt to a completely unfamiliar enemy. The AI is greatly improved in these Metroid encounters. They know where their weak point is, and they do their best to keep it hidden from you while still managing to close in on you and attack. That's right, you can only damage them with missiles on their soft belly. And running out of missiles is a very real concern. There were times where I had to just run away like a little bitch because I was completely at the mercy of my alien adversary. When you start to run low on missiles, there's a real feeling of helplessness, especially when you're still failing to hit your target despite your efforts to take more careful shots. And at that point, all you can do is run. And this brings me to my next major topic of discussion. The mood! Metroid games have always done a great job establishing a certain mood within the game. With the majority of these games being relatively, if not completely devoid of dialogue, the developers had to convey to the player what Samus was going through non-verbally. And I guess I shouldn't say they had to do it, but they did, and that's what makes Metroid games so cool. Anyway, Metroid 2 kinda started to do this with some of the well-placed musical elements, but AM2R nails it down in such a way you'd think it was actually made by Nintendo. There was something about the music on SR388 and Metroid 2 that really just made you want to explore the heck out of it. It wasn't urgent or ominous and kinda just made you want to have a fun mission. Well, this music makes a return in AM2R, a remix of it anyway, and does a great job maintaining the same mood of Metroid 2. And just like in the original, it changes accordingly when some creepy or intense shit is about to go down. There are even some Super Metroid remixes that start showing up, and hey, you're not going to hear me complain about that. Apart from the music, the game employs a few changes from the original that really set the mood and make it shine. This game actually manages to establish a fear element pretty early on. You reach a point where you're all done exterminating the Metroids in one area, and it's time to go back the way you came and go on to a new area, so you're just running along, minding your own business, when wham! Some kind of crazy Kozo laser machine drops spiky walls on either side of you and starts trying to murder you. This fight is completely new to Metroid 2, and it's your first sign that the game isn't afraid to embellish on the original with brand new enemies. A new level of urgency is added to this fight when you realize the walls are not so slowly closing in on you. It's designed so that your victory comes down to the wire, and as you breathe a sigh of relief, you realize SR388 is pretty damn terrifying. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. How about the one tunnel I found where the music gets all quiet and suddenly, BAH! A Metroid pops out of the ground and attacks! Oh, okay, thanks for the warning. Or later, when I'm backtracking through a cave I had already gone through, and right in my way I see, ugh! Fuck! Yeah, this game will scare you, and I think that's awesome. When a 16-bit 2D side-scroller can legitimately make you jump, it's done something incredibly right. So that's all well and good, but how does this game actually play? The gameplay! AM2R seems to be built using the same engine as Zero Mission, which makes the controls much tighter than the original. The jumps aren't as high, but they're quicker and more precise than other Metroid games, and you're able to hang on little ledges and do tricks like this. You can fire pretty ridiculously fast too, which is nice when you're a total spaz like me. It actually feels very Mega Man, and that is not a problem at all. Also, this game fully supports game controllers, so yay! Wall jumping has been included, though you rarely use it due to the inclusion of the spider ball, which seems to have been given a slight speed increase, thank the good lord. Like some of the newer Metroid games, you can actually turn certain beams on and off. Don't like the ice beam? Well, turn it off! And speaking of beams, Super Metroid had that cool trick where you could charge your beam all the way and then go into Morph Ball and lay 5 bombs at once. Well, this game has a brand new feature that's similar, except you actually get some degree of control over them. Depending on how long you let it charge and what direction you're pressing, the bombs can do all kinds of cool tricks, and P.S., it can be pretty useful. Your bombs can actually serve as a decent weapon for once. Also, charging your beam can be used to collect health and weapon refills, something I didn't know at first. As far as the game's design goes, there have been some major improvements. There's a map for one thing, and instead of telling you the total number of Metroids that are left in the whole game, a display tells you how many are left in that area before you can move on. The way it's set up kind of creates the illusion of exploration when you're really going right where the game wants you to go. All the usual power-ups are there, and the terrain is littered with secrets exactly the way you'd expect from a Metroid game. It's really hard to resist the urge to spider-ball across every surface in the game. Seriously, the spider-ball was a dick move by Nintendo for us completionists. There are even some completely original areas in the game. It really is like the Zero Mission approach to Metroid 2. There's also a really cool new logbook feature that gives you little bits of backstory on the environments and enemies you encounter, and the boss entries even give you useful tips. Or completely misleading tips. Maybe I'm just an idiot, because I died and died and died and died on this boss! I mentioned the improved Metroid Ai already. It's really pretty impressive. A little too impressive sometimes. These fights can go from challenging to downright irritating. These things will straight up dodge your missiles. The Metroids being more difficult does add more depth to the game, though. This isn't just a genocidal hunt like the original. You may very well have your ass handed to you. I'm a pretty good 2D platform player, but I died my fair share of times in this game. The good thing is, there's actually a difficulty setting when you start the game, so if it's getting to be too much, you can just start from the beginning and... yeah, never mind. Honestly, the only thing wrong with this game is that it isn't done yet. I was so excited to move on to the next area when... aw, man... oh well. I'll just watch the credit reel out of respect. I absolutely cannot wait for this game to be completed. Official or not, this is the Metroid 2 remake fans deserve. So if you're interested, go download it and enjoy the heck out of it. Links to everything are in the description. I know this was a random thing to review, but I was just so blown away by it. Seriously, I haven't been this impressed by a game in a long time. But I do have some grand plans for a Pokemon video next week. Maybe the top 10 Pokemon that need evolutions? Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe or I'll... I'm not feeling threatening right now. Watch videos! Click on stuff. Bye!